Hello and welcome to episode 245 of the Paint All the Minis podcast. We put the show together so you can have something to listen to whilst you're sitting at your desk and painting your miniatures of any scale, genre or game. Our aim is to have a relaxed and genuine conversation with someone who's as involved in the hobby as you are, from any level, from top to bottom, because we've all got our own unique and individual stories. So sit at your hobby desk, paint your models, listen to the chat. We really do hope that you enjoy the content. This episode I speak to Mr. Mark Latham, and Mark is a prodigious writer in many forms. We spoke back in episode 147 about his Games Workshop past and also about his rules writing and development. So if you've not heard that or you want to focus on tabletop stuff, then 147 will be for you. Because in this show, we talk mostly about his novel writing and also his work writing fiction. He's got a new book that's coming out, the first of a trilogy called The Last Vigilant, which comes out on Tuesday, the 24th of June. So the Tuesday after this comes out on the Friday. This is coming out on Friday, the 20th of June. And we talk about that. We talk about the synopsis of that without giving away any spoilers from that book. But we also talk quite a lot about general nuts and bolts, about the narrative, about the creation of narrative, which can be important in anything that we're doing, really, whether you are thinking about a tabletop scenario, whether you're writing your own rule set, or you just want to kind of look behind the curtain a little bit and figure out how people put together narrative. I think it's a fine chat, and we really do hope that you enjoy it. Thanks to Mark for coming on to the show. It's always a pleasure to speak to him. He's always a fun guy, and he always, I think I mentioned at the back end of the show, he's really open and candid with the responses. I literally felt I could ask him anything, and he would respond seriously and take some time to consider what he was saying, which is awesome. Don't forget, you can come and hang out with the Paint All the Minis community on Discord. There's a link in the podcast description that never expires, so you can come and hang out with a bunch of chilled and like-minded people. You can join the Facebook group, you can follow us on Blue Sky, and you can interact with us. The hobby is about interacting with different people. This hobby is amazing because so many people can interact with various elements in various different ways. So come and hang out with us and come and show us what you're up to and share in the hobby and be part of the tide that raises all boats. You can email me, paintalltheminis@gmail.com if you so desire. And I think that's enough for the pre-ramble ramble. Let's go.
Paint all the minis. Paint all the minis that you can. And when you paint your minis, listen to that podcast with Dan Adams, that is.
I know what you're thinking. Did he paint 6 armies or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I've kind of lost track myself. But being that this is Paint All the Minis, the best place for painting and hobby on the internet, and people aren't going to bite your head clean off for posting, you got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
So hey, I am here with Mr. Mark Latham. How's it going, Mark?
Hey, very well, thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Pets? Have any pets?
Pets, I do. I have a gigantic dog.
Okay.
A big ginger dog called Barnaby.
Nice. How long has Barnaby
he's my
been?
Dog child.
Yeah. How long has he been living with you? How long have you had him?
He's almost 10.
10?
He'll be 10 this month. Yeah.
Nice. So is that the first dog you've ever had? Did you willingly choose this dog, or did it just appear one day?
Willingly, yeah. He chose us, clearly. He's the first dog my wife and I have ever had together. Okay. He's my wife's first dog. I grew up with dogs, and so it was weird for me living for such a long time without a dog. Uh-huh. So I'm very happy to finally I convinced her finally got a pet.
Right. What's the best bits of dog ownership for you? I wouldn't say it's dog ownership, dog companionship, I would say.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I don't feel like I own Barnaby. He kind of trains me, to be honest with you. B-Dog, the big red machine. So the best thing is having an energetic dog that likes to go on long walks, because in my line of work there's a lot of thinking and being forced to leave the house and get away from the computer screen and actually go for a long walk in the countryside and just think things through.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just talk to the dog. He doesn't answer me, but he's a good listener.
Yeah.
I think they're actually very, very handy things to have around.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess it's a requirement to leave the house. You know, with your line of work, you probably spend a lot of time in your own office, you know, with your own thoughts, and so it's a requirement to then leave the house a minimum of 2 times a day, I would guess, right?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, it's summertime now, so I'm in the small study with 2 fans blasting at me because it's so hot.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, yeah, spending a lot of time on my own in my study. It's very important to get out of the house, stretch my legs a bit. So getting the dog out is great. I also make a point of going to the local coffee shop.
Nice.
Which people think, oh, you're such a cliche. You're right to go into a coffee shop. It's like, no, because I know all the people in the coffee shop. We have a bit of bants. You know, I've got a place to just like sit and chill, have a coffee, come back home, think, do a bit of work sometimes.
Yeah.
It's very useful to get out of the house, have a destination.
Nice. Do they know what you do? Or is that a mystery?
Yes, they do, yeah. One of them's a bookstagrammer.
Right.
so she's like super intrigued at the fact that, oh my god, I'll promote your book.
Nice. Oh, that's really cool. Awesome. Oh, there you go, man. That's nice. So let's start getting on to the hobby then. So in the introduction that you've not heard that I recorded, I kind of encourage people to go back and listen to our previous episode that we did in September 2019, pre-COVID times.
I know.
Pre-COVID. I can't remember those heady days. But yeah, so it's a long time since we spoke. So if I can hand it over to you and tell me 2 things, please, if that's okay. The first thing is kind of how might we have heard of you or seen you, where might you have seen your name, and then also what have you been doing since 2019? If we can open that conversation.
Good grief, it's almost I've got to think. I can't really remember those dark days. So I think gaming-wise, the things you'll know me from are The Elder Scrolls, Call to Arms, and The Walking Dead All Out War. Both still going quite strong. Probably my favourite couple of gaming projects to work on in well over a decade. Absolutely fantastic stuff. And I've got some more stuff coming up for that soon. So yes, still working on that. Mm-hmm. I had a bit of a blip with a game called Lasting Tales, which we probably don't want to talk too much about. Mutter. Less about that the better, although feel free to ask me questions if you want to. COVID was really interesting because I ended up doing a lot of kind of freelance work, which has kind of gone unsung, you know what I mean? So a lot of clients were contacting me kind of saying, will you just edit this thing for me or write this thing for me because all my staff are furloughed.
Okay, right, okay.
So I mean, as a freelance, that was kind of meat and bread for me, but actually nothing really took off greatly in terms of new projects from that, apart from Lasting Tales. I did get involved in the video game industry since the last time I spoke to you. So I've been working on Warhammer 40,000 Dark Tide. It's one of their narrative team, writing scripts. And I've also done a load of those, you know, when you click on something in the game and it's like, you've got this amazing bolt gun. What pattern is it? What's its history?
Right.
All those little bits of journal stuff inside the game. I've done a lot of that stuff. So nice. You'll see my mucky fingerprints all over that game.
Yeah. That's cool.
And other than that, it's novel writing. So I really have been. I haven't had a novel out since 2018. Which is kind of crazy. I published 2 in 2018. I think we spoke about them briefly last time. And it's just taken an absolute age to get the next one sold and published. So yeah, we'll talk about that later. But busy.
Lots of different stuff, man. That's cool, and quite a wide variety of different things, from rule writing to kind of like, you know, consulting on rule sets to writing novels and video game work. Right, it's quite a wide variety. Is that intentional, or just kind of, you know, just comes across your desk and you just say yeah?
It is intentional. I don't say yes to everything. I'm very picky these days.
Okay, nice.
You'll see some stuff on my writing CV and think, oh my goodness, why did I do that? But yeah, I love the variety, and it's kind of it's what I do, and it really keeps my mind ticking along and keeps me fresh when I come to a new project. So it is deliberate. I probably spend more time doing novels these days than anything else, but I absolutely wouldn't give up any of the other elements.
Nice. What would be, is the variety your favourite, or is there a certain type of work that you really enjoy when it comes around?
Oh gosh, to be honest, I've got to that point now where if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love game design. I love narrative background writing. I've done a lot of that stuff. Oh yeah, that's another thing. I did most of the background for Mantic's Armada game.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's since the last time I spoke to you. So yeah, it's kind of narrative world building stuff is really great fun. Writing novels, short stories, and then the voiceover scripts are really great fun. Hard learning curve. A few years in, it's going quite well.
Yeah.
I love it all. I wouldn't do it otherwise.
Yeah. That's really good, man. It's really good. It's great to hear somebody who's got that mentality. I feel incredibly fortunate. I kind of feel the same about my own line of work, and I probably wouldn't go every day and get in there for like 7:30 a.m., but I still would do the job for free, if that makes sense. And so it's great to have that position, and I wish everyone in the world could have that feeling. That's awesome. So as we kind of think about certain games that you've been part of, or certain projects that you've done, if we can kind of dig around in a few ones, maybe I can be a little bit indulgent and talk about The Walking Dead All Out of War, because that's a game that I really enjoy. And you kind of alluded to some things that are coming out in that area, or Elder Scrolls. So is there anything you can talk about in terms of games?
Oh gosh, what can I talk about? So, Walking Dead All Out War, they've just announced the latest expansion, so that's kind of the Hilltop and Saviors pack. So all the rules are done for that, completely written. They're taking pre-orders now. The miniatures are painted on their website, so you can see the examples and stuff. That's just been absolutely great, and the resurgence of that game. We thought it was dead in the water. Yeah. So since the last time I spoke to you, it was the license ended, and it ended amicably. And it's because Skybound, who run The Walking Dead, basically thought that it's been too long since the comics ended, so we don't really want to license any more product now. So we're just going to run all the licenses down and work on something new until the anniversary came, the 20th anniversary, I'm not sure, but the big anniversary came along for the comics, and they said, oh, we're going to do a relaunch, and we're going to do loads of cool tie-in stuff. Would you like to do some gaming stuff again? We'll just like press go on the license again, and you can do some stuff. Okay, how long do we have? 6 months. Fine, brilliant. So that's good fun. So I think Mantic worked really hard to get all those old models back into production so people could buy into it again with a starter box and so on. And then they just got me to do all the new stuff, and it's that chance to complete the story that we never had. So we never filled out the Saviors faction, which is a big miss. And now we have, with this coming out with this latest wave. We never got around to the Commonwealth at the end of the timeline. That was it. Everybody wants Commonwealth stuff, stormtroopers essentially. So having a chance to do that and finish that story, get some cool narrative scenarios down, and get people back into it, and it's really been popular to the point where there's going to be more stuff coming up as well. Nice. So yeah.
It's a game that I really like. It's a game that I really like. I really like. It's just awesome. It's awesome as a genre in itself. Your post-apocalyptic zombies. So all the zombie models are awesome, but the game is awesome. And then the fact that you can easily just, once you've played a lot of Walking Dead, you can maybe get a couple of other mini-agnostic zombie games and play and stay within the genre and then come back. So it's really good, man. It's awesome. It's really good. So do you still get a chance to play, or is it literally a case of all your work kind of takes your time away from your own personal hobby? Are you still painting? Do you still paint? Do you still play?
Oh, good lord, yes. So I'm more of a painter than the gamer. Although something recently happened, which is just it's so much fun for me. I've managed to find a few like-minded people to come and start a Warhammer Quest 95 campaign with me. Nice. So finally, every fortnight we get together and we play Warhammer Quest, the original Dungeon Delve. Which is just joyous, because I actually have an almost lifelong hobby project, which has been painting my Ultimate Warhammer Quest set, but never had a chance to find other people to play with. I've been painting these models, these gazillion monsters for the game, and never actually had a chance to play with them. And now finally.
Nice. So how did that happen? Was it like you just were sitting on the side of the road with a sign saying "Want to play Warhammer Quest? Have minis"? Or how did that go?
It was actually catching up with a few ex-workshoppers. Okay. A few of the ex-Games Workshop guys who I used to know. We were catching up with one of them in the pub, one of them in the coffee shop. And it turns out that they also loved the game. And I just never knew that about them. It's like, oh my goodness, what we should do is. And then we just decided to do it. Yeah, so the three of us got together, unlike the compadres.
So they say so they say sometimes don't ever meet your heroes. So is that true of that? Like, don't ever play this game that you cherish, or is it matched your expectation?
I had played it in the past. I played it when it first came out, actually.
Yeah.
Warhammer Quest was the first intro game I ever received in a Game Workshop store. Age 16.
Nice.
In 1995. That will date me.
Yeah.
And I always loved it, and I actually bought it when it came out. Probably the only game I ever bought like on release day, I think. And then I went to, when I was working at Games Workshop quite early on, you may recall I worked on Battle Games in Middle-earth, the part work for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So I think I can tell you this now because enough time has elapsed. But basically, we were set on making a part work for Warhammer Quest. It was a top secret project. And our little team basically was like, how do we make a part work of this so you can collect the miniatures every fortnight and build up a dungeon, so on and so forth. And it didn't happen. It got canned. There was a period, you may remember this period happening, when was it, about 2005, 2006, when Games Workshop basically said, we're not going to do any peripheral stuff anymore. So they got rid of all the part works. And they got rid of because of TV advertising and stuff, and they got rid of any kind of like role-playing games projects they had on the go and stuff like that. Ditched it all, and said we're going to focus on our core business, which was the right business decision at the time. But we were like, oh no, we were so close to having a Warhammer Quest part work. We had mock-ups and everything. It was great. But that meant I played a lot. I wrote a bunch of new rules for it. I had a lot of sit-downs with Andy Jones, who was actually my kind of ultimate boss at that time, and he's the guy who wrote Warhammer Quest. He actually gave me some unreleased material, which is quite interesting, which I cannot talk about. So never show. This can never be public, kind of thing. So that's really great fun. But yeah, so I've got this kind of massive collection of Warhammer Quest stuff and lots of know-how on how to do my own rules, because I got it all passed down from Andy Jones and stuff like that. And finally I can put that into practice many years later. So great fun. That's awesome. Answered your question far too comprehensively.
No, it's good. It's awesome, man. So the question was generally around, like, is there any sort of rose-tinted glasses effect there? But it sounds like definitely not rose-tinted glasses. They're just like completely clear Harry Potter glasses that are still awesome, right?
Well, the thing is, you've got to know what you're heading into when you play that game, right? So it can be a really frustrating game, and the balance is virtually non-existent, and the bell curve of difficulty is insane, and there's lots of complete randomness. So don't get too attached to your characters or magic items or anything, because you can lose anything at any point. But having a fairly, say, recent, like 20-year-old experience of playing this and kind of working on it in a professional capacity, I knew all that going in. So it's like, if you love that kind of thing and you don't mind the randomness and you know what you're going into, it's the best game ever.
Nice.
If you're the kind of person who wants to keep your character all the way to level 10 and don't want to ever take a hard knock, it's not going to be for you.
Nice. That's awesome. So how far are you into this new campaign?
We are level 3, which is probably about 13 games, I think, thereabouts. The wizard, being the most annoying of all the characters, is level 4. The rest of us are not, because he steals everyone's kills and uses all this magic, and he's completely overpowered, hence the lack of balance. But without him, we would all be dead, so
Nice, that's awesome. That's really cool. How have you found that? Is it a weekly thing, and is it easy to keep that habit going, or is it sometimes a little bit of a wobble when you're trying to keep that consistency?
It's just like my RPG group, in that you can't always get the gang together to play. And there's only 3 of us as well, so that's a bit of an odd number. So if one of us is missing, there's kind of no point. So we do it every fortnight at my place, and we've been pretty good so far, actually. It's like get the pizzas in, get the gang together, have a quick recap of what happened last time. It's really important at the end of a session to make a note of all the gold you've earned, any special objectives, all the treasure you've got, so we can deal out the cards next time. But other than that, it's just straight out the box, you're good to go.
It's awesome. When you get into those little habits and you start playing regularly with people, it's really good. And there's those, when you first start off, it's when no one's let each other down yet. Like no one's been sick, no one's dog's got a sore leg or anything like that. It's like you kind of don't you don't let anyone down. You got to keep that feeling. You got to keep that going for as long as you can. I mean, because there's times you get in from work, or there's times you had a rough day, or times you had maybe an argument with the missus or something, and it's like no, I'm going to stay true. And that's kind of like a dungeon crawl in itself. It's like no, I'm going to stay true to the party. I'm going to make sure that I make it tonight. I'm going to make sure I get there. That's cool. That's awesome. That's really, really nice. It's so good that you've had that experience and that friend in the game for so long. Like that game has been your friend for a long, long time. You mentioned 20 plus years there. They're probably even longer than that as well, right?
It's 30th anniversary now.
Yeah. Which is crazy. Hey, that's cool. Do you think that because I think I saw on Warhammer TV a while ago that there was like a Warhammer Quest, and I think they were playing through it over the summer and making some content for it. Do you ever think that like Warhammer? I know that there's been a remake of certain games in the past from Hasbro, but do you think there's going to be like a resurgence at GW about that? Do you think that might happen, or do you think they're always going to keep it as it is?
It's interesting. So this was Nick Basin kind of broke the internet last week, didn't he, by putting that Warhammer Quest 95 on Warhammer TV, and he was showing off the models that he's been painting for it. But actually, it's just something to do. I think it's just something to do for the 30th anniversary. Yeah. Because they've also put a lot of the Warhammer Quest displays back into Warhammer World. I went to the museum for the first time since I left GW a fortnight ago, and 3 weeks ago, something like that. And saw it in there. So I saw the displays. So they're actually acknowledging this game's great anniversary, and what might they do for it. I don't think they could re-release that box as is. Yeah. I mean, they have the technology, don't get me wrong, but firstly, I think they wouldn't release old school models quite like that anymore. I don't think. And I don't think they could actually make it profitably. They'd have to charge a fortune for it these days, because the price of cards and price of tooling, plus the margins that they demand, I think would make that game so unattainable. I doubt they'd go for it for commercial reasons. But never say never. They may surprise me. They've often surprised me for the last few years. Yeah.
How is that going back to your old stomping ground? You mentioned it was the first time you've been back in there, a long, long time. So how was that, and how has it changed, and what were your feelings?
Yeah, it's really strange. I hadn't been back, and I kind of deliberately avoided going back because it's all the nostalgic feeling and stuff, and it was virtually like a second home to me for so long. Yeah. But yeah, the museum is awesome. I went into what used to be the entrance at the bottom of the stairs, and I don't know if you know Warhammer World, but it used to just be like a staircase with a big statue of Lurtz from Lord of the Rings kind of got glowering down at you, and then you go up these dark stairs and get to the shop at the top. But that's not the end. They've got this huge kind of awesome entrance hall with like a greeting staff and like a little mini shop, and then you've got this huge staircase to get into the museum and stuff. Very impressive what they've done. The Rhino Park's outside, new statues everywhere. Very cool. I was actually there to meet a guy called Borja Calvo, who is the current Slayer sword holder at the time of recording. He's an old friend of mine from Madrid, and he was over in the UK for the first time in ages, so it seemed wrong not to go and meet him.
Nice. So did you go into Bugman's Bar? Did you have some green beer?
Annoyingly not, because it was closed for refurbishment at the time. No. And apparently it's really good now. Just to rub it in a little bit. Oh, it's amazing. I can't believe you missed it. That's awesome. I know. Yeah, that's really cool. So I saw a bit of the gaming hall, and saw the shop, which is great. I bought a little Joseph Bugman miniature. Nice. Went around the museum. Grand. Good times.
Because even though you kind of work very individually in terms of physical proximity, do you kind of still keep in contact with people you used to work with? Do you still kind of maintain those relationships?
Yeah, a fair few actually. So I actually live in a village just outside Nottingham, which is we joke it's the retirement home for XGW staff. Jervis Johnson lives here, so I see him quite regularly. My friend Nick, who we play Warhammer Quest with, he used to manage the heavy metal team, and when he left GW, he came here. And there's a few current guys here, so like Robin Cruddas, the game designer for 40k. He also lives here, so I see him fairly regularly. Yeah, it really is. You can't really move without bumping into somebody from GW, old or new.
Yeah, that's cool. And you found that in a lot of jobs, don't you? That you realise that it's quite a small little group, and you kind of you end up bumping into people in different places. That's awesome. But let's start talking about novel stuff. Not just novel in terms of it's interesting and exciting and quaint, but also novel in terms of, writing books. So you mentioned that you've done it before, back in 2018. Was that your first published novels, or have you always done that even before that?
Before that, so I left Games Workshop. When did I leave Games Workshop? Gosh, I can't even remember. It's been so long. 2012, I think. And I left when I just sold my first novel. That was The Lazarus Gate, Victorian science fiction horror. So I basically got an agent and sold that novel, and I had an opportunity to just leave GW. So I took it and became a writer. That was the plan. It was a fairly nerve-wracking couple of years. Should I have given up full-time employment to do this? It worked out in the end, thankfully. So I actually wrote. So last time I spoke to you, I had published 6 books, but I just published what would be my last book until now, which is kind of crazy. And I always kind of worried that, if you're out of the circulation in this industry for a couple of years or more, it's really hard to get back into it. You're virtually starting from scratch, right? And that kind of did happen. So over COVID, I was writing this book. So I think I found my first synopsis for this book back in dated like 2019. Okay. And it's only just coming out on June 24th. 2025 plug. And it's taken many forms and many drafts since then, and I end up kind of parting ways with my agent and getting a new agent a couple of years ago now, and she sold this book to Orbit, which is just like the most mind-blowing thing for me. Like I'd been in kind of the middleweight publishing for so long, for like more than a decade. So to get someone like Orbit to pick it up was just it's like, oh my god, that's kind of life affirming. So they picked up a trilogy. I got a contract for a trilogy based on the first book, and it's out soon. I'm very, very happy with it.
Yeah. So as we talk, it's literally out in the next couple of days. So we're talking on the 18th of June, and it's due out on the 24th. Yeah. So it comes out literally this Tuesday coming, right? So let's start digging into that then. So tell us the title and tell us the kind of what we would read in Waterstones as we kind of think about maybe picking it up. What would the synopsis of the book be?
Oh, good lord. Asking me for a synopsis. Agents do this when you meet them.
Summarize
your book in one sentence.
It's like PTSD.
You kind of freeze and squirt the musk of fear. So it's called The Last Vigilant. And the way I pitched it to my agent, when you can just say anything, you haven't got to be too careful. It's imagine if Miss Marple and Major Richard Sharp solve mysteries in Westeros.
There you go. That's good, man. Yeah, I like that one. There's a lot to get. There's a lot of angles there, man. That's nice. Go on, talk to me about it more.
Yeah, so it's really unusual, apparently still, to have an elderly woman as a protagonist. But I absolutely love mystery fiction, and I love Miss Marple. I think Miss Marple's story is fantastic, right? It's a bit of a cozy crime, guilty pleasure of mine. And I thought, what if she was in this kind of this epic fantasy, almost borderline grimdark world? Yeah. And what if you had this little old lady who's disarmingly vulnerable, who's actually the most astute detective who ever lived, kind of thing. And she is a vigilant, an elder Drake her name is, and she's a vigilant, which is an old order of kind of inquisitors, to be honest. They are demon hunting detectives. And the reason that they're detectives is because they need to fill their minds with detail and minutiae, and they literally see everything to pack their minds so that there's no space for the demons to get in.
Right.
So they can take one look at you and know what you had for breakfast and whether you're guilty of murder or not.
Right.
But they have to be that way, otherwise demons will come scrabbling through the veil and start taking over.
Right.
And so her order was disbanded 40 years before the present day in the book. And they've been written out of history. Nobody remembers them. Magic has been outlawed by the new kings. Nobody's allowed to practice magic. If they do, they are witches and they're burned at the stake. And nobody remembers these demons, the Riftborn. So why do we need people to fight demons? They're just fairy stories, right?
Yeah.
Until a new threat arises and someone does need a Vigilant to come and fight some demons. So what happens? They've got to try and find a last living Vigilant, and they don't think there is one. So they send Holt Hawley, who is a sergeant in an elite company, to head north into the wilds and investigate rumours of the last living Vigilant, see if he can find them. He is despised by his men. He's basically a Jonah, so they see him as an ill omen, and they absolutely hate him. They've always hated him, mainly because he's a commoner in an elite regiment of posh people, and they really dislike this. So he's kind of like a bit like Richard Sharp, you see. So I love Sharp books. So kind of betrayed by his men, and kind of left for dead, and then he kind of ends up with the Vigilance. And he's like, well, I swore an oath that I'd bring you back, so I'm going to bring you back. And she's like, I don't want to go back. I'm quite happy leaving you on my own, thanks.
All right.
Miles away from anyone.
That's awesome, mate. It's like I kind of don't want to know anymore because I really want to read it.
No,
I want to be like,
I won't go any further.
that's the end of the podcast. See you later.
That's what you can read on the back of the book. That's basically the summary of the book. I won't go any more into the plot, but that's kind of that's the setup.
That's cool, man. And you mentioned a trilogy, right?
A trilogy, yes. I'm working on the second book as we speak.
Nice.
Which is hard work. So I never, when I signed with Orbit, I didn't actually have a trilogy in mind. I'd got this first book finished. I know exactly how the series will end, but I had no idea how many books that they would give me.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it would just be 2 because duologies are quite popular right now. But they went for a trilogy, so it's getting at that point now where I can expand this universe now. I can try and work out what I'm going to do next, and where I can take the characters and what the mysteries are going to be and all this kind of stuff.
Nice. What was your What was your favourite part? Like, what's been your favourite part of pulling these books together so far? Is there anything that jumps out? Has been like you've just been in the moment, you've just been in the feeling, you've been loving it?
Every single time I have doubts about the plot and the kind of the really detailed stuff, the stuff that drives you a bit mad when you're trying to write something. What I always do is I'll just skip ahead to the next time that the 2 characters, Drake and Hawley, are having a bit of banter, because I just live and breathe those characters right now, and I think they're the best characters I've ever written, and their interplay is so much fun. That it kind of, I write my way out of a corner all the time. Because I was going to say, I'm just going to stop. What would Drake say at this point, and how would Hawley respond? And then just start writing the conversation. Nice. And that tends to fix the problems.
That's really cool. And why do you think they are the best characters that you've written? Any particular reason?
It's the first time I think a lot of my previous books, I've done like detective fiction before. I've written Sherlock Holmes novels, for example, and those books are mainly plot driven. As in, stuff happens. Sherlock Holmes solves it, Dr. Watson records it, right? Simple as that. They don't really develop and grow as characters very much. In fact, they can't, because the kind of at the end of every story you hit the reset button, and they're ready to be on a next adventure next time, completely fresh slate, not mentioning any previous events. It's that kind of weird thing. It's like watching a kind of a serial on TV, right? Yeah. And with the last Vigilant, I really went character first. Like, I was before I even had a story, I had this idea of my Miss Marple type character who's lived alone in a tower in the woods, completely on her own, Well, but she's got a pet raven who she talks to. So her and her pet raven have lived alone in this tower in the woods for 40 years. And she hasn't been, in 20 years before that, she was abroad. So now, after 60 years apart from her old homeland, she's kind of brought out of retirement to talk to people again. And she has gone a little bit mad. But she's also got all this knowledge and all this power that she needs to bring to the table. So getting into that space, like, what on earth, how would she react to any given situation? How fearful is she at any given moment? How might she respond? Or what is she going to do when confronted by this terrible corruption in the land? That's what started it. So I kind of started with her scenes and inhabiting that character, and it all came from there.
It's interesting, like, when you create that. I think the best books and the best stories, you kind of believe that those characters are genuinely actually real, or they very easily could be. Does that kind of make sense? But how do you create that genuine feeling? Is it something you do solely you? Have you got a number of different people that you bounce ideas off, or is it your dog that you talk to? Is it your coffee shop companions? Like, how do you kind of inject that genuine nature into these characters to make them come alive?
Well, the old adage, kind of write what you know. It doesn't just mean be realistic and literally write your life story, because otherwise all my books would be kitchen sink dramas in Stoke-on-Trent, and that'd be terrible, wouldn't it? Nobody would read that. It means you need a nugget of truth in everything that you write. So there's a bit of me in all my characters, and I'll usually take or at least somebody I know really, really well, right? But like the first book I ever wrote, The Lazarus Gate, John Hardwick was a bit of it's like inserting myself into a novel kind of thing, and it's my debut, so it's possibly done a bit clumsily. But then it's definitely more so now with these two characters, the detective and the soldier. They both have little personality quirks of mine that are kind of implanted into them, and it makes it much easier to say, well, actually, that would be one of my triggers. So how would I react when confronted with that? And it kind of go from there. So it's all about having a kernel of truth. It's not having the whole truth. Neither of the characters is entirely me. They're made up of friends and family and people I've known in the past. But at their heart, they've got that personality trait that I very much understand.
But also different to you, right? Because you're not a middle-aged lady, right? So how do you deal with the different gender identity, or maybe the different age bracket? Like, is it just what feels right to you?
Well, surprisingly, I've known a fair few old ladies in my life. So it's kind of but actually, it's partly because I know I'm only in my 40s, right? But I'm starting to feel old. I'm starting to get that cranky, devil-may-care-ness about me. And there are strong older women in my life too, who I kind of look up to and kind of see, Imelda Drake in this book, she's definitely at that age where she has stopped caring what people think of her. And this is going to sound quite waffy now, I do apologise, but when I was at university, I studied postmodern feminism in literature, which kind of gave me that insight, I think, into, because I read so many books by the great feminist thinkers and things like that, and it kind of makes me think about it differently. I don't want to sound absolutely terrible and pretentious, but I definitely think I hope I've done an Elder Drake justice. I think all the women who I've asked, I have passed it by a lot of people, right? Because I don't want to just write a female character and yes, I'm amazing. I totally understand the female condition. I shall send it to print and never bother me again. I made sure I got a lot of opinions on this to make sure it's absolutely okay.
It always makes you think of Red Dwarf. I'm not sure if you're a Red Dwarf fan, but it's when Rimmer's pretending to be Kachansky to try and fool Lister into turning Rimmer off, or something like that. Anyway. and just the way that he's talking about being a woman and things, it's like really jarring, and that's why it's funny. So it's just really interesting, isn't it? And it's like it's just a whole world that you create, you know, and a whole world, and I think the closer you can get to that reality, as you mentioned there's always a kernel of truth in it, the better the book is. When that character is believable, when the dialogue is believable, when the relationship is really believable, that's when writing's at its best. And so there's the time spent thinking of the plot. There's a time spent obviously writing, there's time spent editing, there's time spent tinkering around, but like, and I guess it's different for every character and different for every book, but how long is spent simply just thinking about who that person is and what that person might do or how that person might react to things? Like, 'cause I guess that's probably more significant than the actually writing, I would say, right? Maybe?
It is. Some might say that I spend too long doing that part. Kind of sitting at a desk, my wife will walk past the room and she's like, "Are you staring at the ceiling again?" No. I'm thinking really hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's integral, actually, to just kind of... And it comes through the edits a lot of the time. Every time I kind of do another pass of the stuff I've written already, I'll kind of... Actually, it doesn't quite ring true. How do I go back and tighten that up quite a lot? So the version that my editor finally sees, he'll call it the first draft, but it's not first draft. So I've probably been through 4 or 5 by that point.
Yeah. It's pretty cool, man. It's so interesting. I think writers and creatives and authors and artists, it's just amazing. You know, I love like physical things, like, you know, mechanics and people that deal with physical things, but people that deal with things that don't exist, that have to show you that world without showing you the world because they can't. I think it's just amazing, man. I think that you do amazing work. It's super cool. And so you mentioned there about how you started and you weren't sure how long it was gonna how many books it was gonna take, and you mentioned it's now a trilogy. And you mentioned this move into something being a little bit more epic. So I often think about Star Wars. You know, I think about the first original trilogy. You know, got A New Hope, and A New Hope is in itself. It's really cool, but that's you know, a very, you know, small section, and you get into Empire Strikes Back, and that's when the world really starts to expand, right? That's when you start seeing they can rely on all the stuff that they've created from the first one, and they can kind of, you know, enlarge its scope. So if that's what's happening with your second book, that's what's been happening over the last 10, 11 months?
It absolutely is, yeah. So I actually see the Star Wars trilogy as almost a perfect example of the way a trilogy expands, contracts, wraps up at the end. I don't think a finer trilogy exists on film, I would say, just in terms of pure plotting and storytelling.
Okay.
As just an example, something you can actually teach, and I have taught it, weirdly. So I had a great opportunity last year to go and teach narrative design at a video games college.
Okay.
And I taught basically narrative design 101 for a bunch of guys who are going to be games writers and coders. Mm-hmm. You're also interested in doing the story part of their game. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I kept coming back to in every section of my course was Star Wars. It's about writing believable heroes, writing great villains with motivations, about writing a series of games in this instance, and how to plan out a trilogy. I just think it's great.
Mm-hmm. And so how is your, I know you can't talk about it too much, but how is your second book going to expand and develop and grow?
So the first book is actually quite close focused. So a lot of the action takes place in a single town with a castle, and it's basically an Elder Drake trying to get the best of a bunch of corrupt nobles who want to thwart her at every turn. Whereas the second book, they will be firstly in a big city as a base operations. Mm-hmm. So suddenly you go from like, you're not just in a room in a castle, suddenly you're in an entire district of a city with all these characters and all this colour and all this amazing stuff going on. And it's the biggest city in the world, in fact. And then they're going to leave that city and go to another country, actually physically go there. And they're going to meet even more powerful characters. Mm-hmm. And they're going to talk to the king himself. And they're going to be involved in conspiracies that are a bit more world-threatening and wider-reaching. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it truly does expand. Orbit were very clear that they were an epic fantasy company. They wanted epic fantasy, and they saw the potential in this first book to grow and grow, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Hopefully it lands, but it's great because, like I was saying before, Imelda Drake's kind of foible is that she doesn't like being around people. She's kind of agoraphobic, and it's dangerous for her to be around people because if other people are corrupt and fallible, if they let the demons in, then they might get her. Right?
Yeah.
So suddenly she's in a city with like 100,000 people or something. It's like, oh my god.
Nice.
So she's just ready to implode at any moment.
Yeah.
True fish out of water stuff. So the conflict, the internal conflict for that character writes itself, which is just great. Actually, I wish it did write itself. That'd be awesome.
It'd be like alchemy, the books that write themselves. Before we mentioned about some things that you really liked, you mentioned that the characters, that you really enjoyed the characters coming together. Is there anything that was a real bit of a toil, stuff that you really had to work hard to kind of get over, or was it all pretty plain sailing?
Honestly, this second book's been the most difficult. So I'm writing it right now. The plot is just fiendish, but it's kind of the most difficult part is when you have a complicated plot based on mysteries and conspiracies and things with a big cast of characters. And sometimes you can write it all out, and you can use spreadsheets and flowcharts and flipboard charts, whatever it might be, and you can explain it to yourself. So I know what's going on here. I know what all these characters are doing at any given moment. I know what they have for breakfast. I know who they're going to murder this day and where they're going to be at any given time. But explaining all of that to the reader in a way that they can digest is so difficult, because I don't have infinite space. I'm not George R. R. Martin with a 1,000-page book. Right? I've got to bring this home in less than 200,000 words. So it's boiling it down to, you know what, don't overcomplicate things. And making a complicated thing less complicated is the hardest part. I've really shied away from this for the longest time because I really enjoy movies. I really love watching movies, and I really love how movies make you care about characters or care about certain plot points with hardly any screen time. So every single second of screen time, it needs to be really efficient, and it needs to really connect with what its intent is, so that the people are drawn in to the movies. The best movies that you watch are ones where you don't realize you're sitting on your sofa. You don't realize you're sitting in a movie theater. It's just you and the movie that's ongoing. So how do you deal with that? How do you make sure that it's super efficient and it's super punchy and it does exactly what? Is it just a case of constant refinement and tweaking? I think it is. There's no easy way. I think every single book I've written, I've gone through start to finish. I don't like skipping ahead. I try and do it start to finish. It's always too long. There are always bits I'm not happy with, and then I go through and refine the whole thing, and then again, and then probably again. It's understanding story beats is a really important thing. So you kind of know, okay, when I'm, by the 10% mark, these characters you've got to know who these characters are, what their main defining character trait is, and what mission they're about to go on, what thing they want to go and do, because they have that sort of that call to arms that they have to accept, the call to action. And there's loads of little markers like that. They're kind of invisible markers, the story beats. Readers don't even know that they need them half the time, but they kind of do. If you feel dissatisfied with a story, it's often because those beats haven't been hit at the right place. You're like, well, it's weird because it's had absolutely zero conflict. I'm halfway through the book now, and there's no big kind of reveal. It's just muddling along. It's it's unsatisfying, right? Movies are fantastic. Studying movies and looking at how that can work in fiction or in any discipline really is really important. You talk about the kind of what's the word? Economy of character and plot. So look at stuff like Die Hard, for example. Not a single wasted line. Within 10 minutes you absolutely know who all these characters are and what is kicking off. And there's even the B characters, you totally you know everything there's to know about Ellis, everything there's to know about Sybil McLean. You understand that relationship between the two of them. You know about John. You know what a stubborn idiot he is, and that's what he's got to overcome. Yeah, perfect, right? Speed is another great one. You think that Speed might be a dumb movie, but it's actually very, very cleverly written. The first 10 minutes of Speed, Keanu Reeves' character refers to himself as being stupid like 20 times in just the first 10 minutes. His partner's the clever one, he's just the muscle, stupid. Hits himself in the head, all kinds of stuff. And it's because by the end he's got to use his brain to solve the problem, right? So it's just foreshadowing what he's got to learn in order to defeat the baddie.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just gave you narrative design 101 there, didn't I?
No, it's really good. No, it's really good because, like I said, it's something that I've resisted so long because I really love movies and I really love stories. So it's like I don't really want to look behind the curtain, or like you know, it's like the car works and I enjoy driving, so I don't want to open the bonnet and look at the engine and start figuring out how it all works, because that I was worried that it might lessen my experience. But it's not, actually. I can still watch movies and read books for what they are, but I actually quite enjoy knowing what it is that means that I enjoy it, if that kind of makes sense. And what first started me off was when a lot more streaming services have come online, and there's a lot more kind of really big, lengthy episodic dramas and things. You know, something that might have been just a movie back in 2000 or 90s is now like a 10 episode series. You know, Game of Thrones. I think one of the first one was Rome. You remember Rome back in the day? Band of Brothers. You know, all these things. And because there's more streaming services, there is more people that are looking to have these series. And sometimes they hit, and sometimes they don't. And what makes one thing a hit and what makes something not a hit became really interesting to me. And so I started trying to look at the theory behind these things and the ideas behind these things. So some of them I really enjoyed and some of them I really didn't. And one thing that separated really good shows from shows that maybe weren't as renowned was that they have 10 episodes, 10 hours, where a movie would only have maybe 2. And so there's a whole bunch of wasted time where stuff isn't really happening, or there's certain story arcs that need to be remembered, but there's not really much happening with that storyline until this other things happen. So there's a lot of marking time. And it's something that's really interesting to me. And another thing that jumped out is about how difficult it is for timelines, so if you've got a couple of different things that are happening, those two storylines need to line up to make sure that the things are happening in the same sort of time. Even something down to traveling. If they're traveling from one particular town to a different town, how long is that going to take, and what's going to occur in the story while those guys are traveling from point A to point B? And so is there any kind of things that have popped up like that in your story, and have you managed that?
It's unbelievable that you're almost reading my mind now. I literally had a conversation on Monday because I was struggling with kind of just bringing home the book to plot. There's some elements that I hadn't quite tied up. I mean, I'm most of the way through writing the book, right? But there's some elements that was sticking out. I cannot fix this thing. And I was sitting down on Monday with a Games Workshop legend, Mark Gascoigne, former Black Library chieftain. Well, actually, fantasy legend, I should say. He's the writer behind Advanced Fighting Fantasy and so on. So I was sitting down with him, and I was kind of saying the exact thing to him. Like, so there's the point where I split the party, and there's a big chunk where there's kind of two concurrent timelines. They've got to travel all this way and go and see these guys over here, while these people have got to be investigating in the city, and then they've got to come back. But what are they all getting up to while they were away and stuff? And he was just like, you realise that you've made all this up, don't you? So it doesn't have to take them 10 days to travel to that other place. It could literally be a 3-day sea voyage. So why are you making it hard for yourself, right? Why isn't your city like on the border? You could do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's true.
Kind of thought. And I thought, well, the honest answer is because I've drawn the map now. And he's like, that's not good enough. Redraw the map. I was like, oh yeah, good enough.
Yeah.
The problem is now solved.
Yeah, that's super interesting. A thing that jumped out a while ago to me is you mentioned Miss Marple a few times. You mentioned investigation. You mentioned mystery. So part of why people love those kind of movies and books is because they like to think about the outcome. So how much in your writing is giving people maybe little clues or little hints or little misdirections. Does that form part of your writing, where you kind of like pick out some turning points where people might figure out the end game at this point, or they might? Do those nuggets that you drop, if you do drop any, become a little bit more less subtle as you progress, or does that not factor in at all?
It does factor in. I often drop too many clues. This is kind of my one of my writing foibles, is that I'll do a scene, dialogue between a suspect and the detective, and I'll just get too many things in there, like the too many questions get asked, too many red herrings get dropped, or too many clues get dropped. And one thing I've learned since writing these big fantasy books is that actually you need to keep scenes a lot pointier. You're allowed a clue and a red herring in every scene, no more than that, because otherwise the reader gets lost, because it's just this long, winding dialogue. Like, oh my goodness, I've got to keep track of all this stuff. But what is important with that is that if the reader goes back and checks the previous chapters, they go, you know what, I could have worked this out if I'd known this thing, if I'd spotted this thing, all the clues were there. It's now, fantasy mysteries are a bit different, because there's often a fantasy element that the reader can't always predict. So I at least like to give the rules of the fantasy element early on. So like literally, if it's going to come into play, if the mystery is going to be solved because of magic, you have to understand the rules of that magic. So technically, you could work it out if you thought really hard about it. I can't just cheat and say at the end, but wizards did it, and therefore all the clues are pointless.
that is a big like deflating balloon when that happens. It's like I don't want to name any books or stories, but a couple of times that's happened to me, and I've been like, oh. Yeah. So is there any kind of like fantasy stories that you've really not necessarily influenced you, but just you've really appreciated, that you've gone, yeah, that's a great way to wrap that up within that fantasy setting?
Oh gosh. So I'm going to make a confession that I don't read a lot of modern fantasy. Okay. And I deliberately haven't read any in all the time I've been writing this book, because I don't want to be influenced by it. No, it's totally fine. I get that, So there's lots of comparisons. Like, if you like these writers, you'll like Mark. I'm like, well, I haven't read those writers because I heard early on that they were a bit similar, and I don't want to be influenced or do anything similar to them intentionally or unintentionally. So I say the writer that had the biggest influence on me is Ursula K. Le Guin. So we're talking years ago now, the Earthsea series. I think is the pinnacle of fantasy writing. I like it more than Lord of the Rings. He says in hushed tones, how dare you! Shall not pass. But I would say if you haven't read those, definitely do, because they are incredible. A lot more magical than what I'm doing right now. I'm doing a very low magic system, but absolutely fantastic. That's really cool. I really like David Gemmell books, and one of the reasons I really love David Gemmell books is because I really resonate with the characters in the sense of that they really feel like real people, normal people. Not normal people, they're doing fantastical things, but they've got a set of strengths, they've got weaknesses, they just feel really, really believable. And how, you got a lot of experience of balancing with creating rule sets and different things like that. Do you find you have to go through the same process with balancing in terms of your characters to make sure that, yes, they're sufficiently heroic, or yes, they're sufficiently intelligent or sufficiently robust, whilst also remaining real? Ooh, that's an interesting question. There were a few scenes in the first book, in the last Vigilant, where perhaps my characters got a bit ahead of themselves, and they became a bit... Holt Hawley especially, he's this kind of hard-bitten, broken-nosed soldier. And there were a few times where he just became a little bit unbelievably hard. He's like, just like Richard Sharp does in the books, right? Sharp is unbelievably heroic. He wins every fight. You know, he beats people far better than he does. He'll take on an army on his own and all that kind of stuff. It gets a little bit silly at times. But Bernard Cornwell's got a great way of bringing it all home at the end. Whereas for my guy, he's a fish out of water. He's small fry, really. His main trait that gets him through is he's often very angry and he's really tough. He's the guy who can take a beating, right? So when he does really, there are scenes where I thought he's getting a bit too much like a fantasy hero now. You know, he's just like unbeatable with his mighty sword and these incredible feats of strength and stuff. I did have to go back and dial it in to make him more believable, because I'd like him maybe to get more towards that point, but if I blow it all in book one, he's got nowhere to go. He's like the first book is like the first act of Willow. You know, Mad Mardigan hasn't proven himself as the greatest swordsman ever lived just yet, but he will do later. It's that kind of
that's really cool, man. So as we look forward to release, you know, as this comes out on the Friday, it's being released on the Tuesday. How do you feel? Have you got certain hopes? Do you purposely not have any hopes? You know, are you going to be click and refresh on certain things? Like, how are your thoughts as it kind of goes out into the wild?
I try to avoid reviews. If I get really good reviews, it's normally because people tag me in them or my publisher sends them to me. Generally speaking, I avoid the review sites like Goodreads and stuff, and I have done for forever, because it's. I mean, I've got a fairly thick skin, to be honest, and I know this book isn't going to be for everyone, because no book is for everyone, right? But there's no point torturing yourself with, oh no, this person's giving me a 1-star, what do I do? No point torturing yourself. Just do the best you can do, write the book you want to write, and go from there. So no, I'm not going to be hitting refresh on the review sites, certainly not. I am a bit nervous this time, and partly because Orbit Books, I mean, they were a big deal, and I was signed by Orbit US as well, not UK, which is even, it's because my agent is American. I think that's the only reason that happened, but it's kind of crazy, because the US market is so much bigger for fantasy than the UK. And they are giving me quite a lot of hype, and I think the hype is the thing that makes me the most nervous. I think it was just kind of under the radar. It's just one of the summer books, we're just releasing it, here you go, buy it or don't. There's no pressure. But when it's like, oh, this is an amazing book by a new voice in fantasy, and then somebody gives me a review saying it's going to influence fantasy books for years to come. Literally, someone wrote that. Someone literally wrote that recently, and I'm just like, no, please don't say that.
Well, hopefully, you know,
I've not finished book 2 yet, and it's giving me all the pressure.
That's nice that they say that.
It's got to be amazing. It's lovely of them to say that. But now I'm just slightly terrified that book 2 won't be good enough.
Do you mentioned there about writing the book that you want to write, but does a market ever factor into your mind? Because I guess American markets are very different to UK markets. So does that ever factor into anything that you think of?
I try not to. I think that when the last Vigilant was born in my mind, I actually had 3 story ideas, and I ran them past my former agent, and he basically picked that one, to do that one first, because fantasy mysteries are kind of an untapped market, and I think I can probably sell that one. I was like, sooner. I was like, so that's the only reason from the 3 ideas I picked that one. And the other 2 ideas, I'll probably do them in the future, hopefully do in the future. They're still there, along with a bunch of others. But that's the closest I've ever come to being to changing my initial scope for the market. It's like, which one do I do? Which one is the market ready for? And I mean, it's completely pointless, because it took 6 years to sell it, so to write it and sell it. Everything's changed by then, because publishing is surprisingly quick, you know. Nice. If it's not done in 3 years from the day, then it doesn't matter, because the market's changed. So I think the best thing you can do is just write the book you want to read. which is kind of what I always do.
I think that's a really good advice for anything, no matter what you're doing. Live the life that you want to live. Choose the dinner that you want instead of what you think people should. We should have to order or whatever. So I think that's really sound advice for anything that we do. But unfortunately, that's our hour kind of gone by. It's kind of rattles by. And just before I ask my final question, I just wanted to say thank you for being so open and thank you for being so patient with the questions that I've asked and so honest with the responses. We really, really value it. It didn't feel like you were guarded at all. It didn't feel like that you were trying to dodge any of the bullets that I was kind of like, no, I wasn't as a bullet, or any of the tennis balls that I was hitting to you. You kind of hit them all back. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. You were disarmingly laid back. You probably trapped me.
Well, thanks a lot for your time. We really appreciate it, and we wish you all the very best with it. It's really great to hear a creative person putting together something that's that we can, especially coming up to summer. It's a book that you can pick up. As maybe you head out to Spain or head out to Portugal or something like that. Sit by a pool, and all the very best with it. And the final question is, it seems to be like you spent a lot of time creating this world. It seems to be like you spent a lot of time, drawing maps and different things. And so do you, I know you probably don't know, but, with the skill set that you have, could we see like a kind of, maybe a tabletop game out of this? I don't know, is that maybe happening?
You know what, it's crossed my mind, and if I were to do it myself, it would be a TTRPG. Mm-hmm. But finding the time to do that is very difficult right now.
Yeah, for sure.
If anyone in the industry, any of my old contacts are listening and they want to make a game of this, I would be happy to. I'm open to offers. I'd love it. I would love a little miniature of an Elder Drake and Holt Hawley. I think that'd be fantastic.
That's amazing, mate. Well, all the very best with it. I hope that it not only meets your expectations but exceeds them, because you seem like a really great guy and you put together awesome stuff, and people like you need to really, really get that success that you deserve, mate. Because there's a lot of hours you put into it, mate, and you want to make sure it all comes through to fruition. There's a lot of delayed gratification that's coming out here, right?
Yeah. Cheers, Dan. I really appreciate that.
So there you go, episode 245, all wrapped up there. Interesting. It's always interesting to talk to authors. I think there's a few authors that have been on the show, a few fantasy authors that have been on the show over the years. Justin Hill has been on, Gav Thorpe has been on, a couple of other people have been on, so it's always good to speak to authors. If you want to know more about, if you want to hear from some more authors, give me a shout. It'd be nice to hear from you for some certain authors that you might like to hear from, because I think that narrative and fiction and fantasy and sci-fi, it kind of fits nicely into our hobby. It's a kind of a natural bedfellow of our hobby, isn't it? The kind of the lore and the fantasy and sci-fi elements of it. It kind of fits hand in glove. If you don't like the bedfellow reference, you can say hand in glove. I can't even think. So today's the day I set off on my summer holidays. Woo! So I'm not going to be doing any painting over the summer because I don't have a paint set up wherever I'm going. I'll definitely take a couple of rule books though, I think, and I'll definitely take a couple of games to play over the summer, so I'll keep you updated on that. I've been painting some House Greyjoy iron makers. Thank you to Randall of the Imperial Minis YouTube channel. You might have heard him on the show a couple of times, and you'll know him from the Discord and also the Paint All the Minis Facebook page. I've been following, loosely following, probably what's one step above loosely? Semi-loosely following a showcase that he put together for his Greyjoys. He's an awesome painter, and he painted some Greyjoys a while ago, and I'm starting to paint my Greyjoys now for A Song of Ice and Fire, and I'm painting some iron makers, and they've got big flowing billowy cloaks, and so I decided to kind of loosely follow his example, which is working out really nice. Some kind of different sea green kind of cloakiness with various shades. So I think I got 3 shades, like proper dark sea green, then a kind of lighter sea green, then a kind of turquoisey kind of bluey color, and so that's working out really nice, and it kind of has some differentiation to that group. Again, like awesome aesthetic because Greyjoys are kind of like Vikings, so I'm guessing they've not got standardized gear, and when stuff falls apart they just grab something else. So yeah, I've been really enjoying putting those guys together, mostly because I'm painting 12 guys instead of painting 36 in one go, so that's really nice. So I'm spending the same amount of time, I'm just kind of putting all of that effort into 12 and not 3 times that number, so I'm finding that I'm getting a lot better effects within the same amount of time, and just really enjoying that. It's just different. I've been really enjoying the batch paint since February, and for some reason, not quite sure why, I've just been embracing it. But yeah, so painting those Greyjoys have been awesome. Probably not going to finish them before I go, but they'll be sitting waiting for me when I return. We've been debating a hot debate in the house, what games to take over summer, what kg to allocate from our baggage to games and books. Not sure whether we'll take Here's Negan, which is an awesome Walking Dead game, whether we'll take Aliens, Another Glorious Day in the Core, or some other games for our family summer game vacation. But yeah, interested to see what you guys have been up to. We're not going to have any break over the summer. Even though I'm going away on holiday, I'll still record episodes over the summer, and even if I didn't record any, I'm still good till like mid-August. So fret ye not, you will have stuff to do over the summer holidays. Good opportunity to kind of delve back into back catalogue. 245 episodes, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can kind of go and pick back over and have another listen if you completely forgot about it, or listen for the first time. If you're a newbie, if you're a new post-ramble, you can kind of go and have a look through. And if you feel the need to give some feedback, please do so. It's always nice to receive feedback. It's always nice to kind of get that a little bit of response about what some people might have listened to, what they might have appreciated, or a certain guest that they've liked to listen to, because it kind of helps to know what people are liking to kind of do more of that stuff. So there's certain types of people that you've enjoyed hearing from, give me a shout and I can make sure that more of those guys go into the rotation. Let's have a quick look at the guest list, and see who's on the kind of on the guest list moving forwards. Who we got? Well, I'll tell you the people that are on the list, but I haven't messaged yet. Forge of Mars, Pendraken Miniatures, Patrick Todorov of Zona Alpha, he's been on there. Chris Henning from Hits and Crits, that's a Song of Ice and Fire one. I'll probably leave that a little bit because I think you guys are a Song of Ice and Fired out. Andrew Medbury from Medbury Minis, Chris Van Patten from Moonlight Miniatures, Dark Art Studio, Grippin Beast, loads. So there you go. That's the list of people I haven't got around to messaging yet. I've literally got hundreds of people that are on the interested in talking to but not messaged. I then have another list of about 50 people where messages have been sent. I then have another list of people that have agreed to come on but waiting on the date. And I then have another list of people that have actually been booked. So there you go, a little bit of highlight into the wheels within wheels. And if you are interested in doing your own podcasty stuff and you've got a better system, let me know. But if you're interested in doing like the whole that kind of thing, it's wheels within wheels. Like I said, interested but not messaged, interested and messaged, interested and agreed to come on but no date, and interested to come on and date set. And then I've also got other lists, but I won't go into those unless you listen to this late at night and you're struggling to sleep, and I'll carry on for the next 20 minutes. But there you go. That's the awesome level of fun and sexy organization that you need to have to be able to kind of run a semi-successful and moderately effective podcast. And I've got literally no idea what other people do, because I purposely never really speak to other people that do podcasts about what they do, because I just want to do my own thing and tick along and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to hear maybe a little bit about what other people do. That'll be fun. But anyway, that is enough of the post-ramble. I hope that you guys are all doing well. Make sure you're reaching out to your group. Make sure you're reaching out to your friends. Don't just kind of sit there and wait for people to message you, or don't just sit there and wonder why you don't have much crack or much banter with people, because you got to get out there. You got to run those hard miles, and you got to make sure you message and call the people and keep those connections alive and keep those connections reinforced, because that's what life's about, isn't it? It's about forming and maintaining positive relationships with people. So I hope that you are doing that. I hope that you're well. If you're heading out on summer vacation anywhere, I hope you have a great time. If you're going to have your children within the house because they're not in school over the summer months, I wish you all the very best. And I hope that you're able to maintain your sanity throughout that entire process. And until next time we're together, keep painting.